When working with mediums and varnishes, it's really important to understand what does what. So make sure you have your basic tools like a palette knife, and your paint. We're using a basic acrylic paint, and we're going to start with a matte gel medium. Okay, now you can see that as I'm stirring it up, the blue that was on that palette knife that was badly cleaned is getting mixed into it, which is very disappointing. With any medium, you want to use a 50-50 ratio. Okay, you don't want to have more than 50% of the mixture being the medium that you're using. You can have less, but never have more than 50% because you don't want the acrylic paint to be too thinned out. Make sure that you clean your brush properly before trying different mediums. You can do that by swishing it around, pressing on the bottom, and running it along the side of the glass. Now, I'm also doing a section that has absolutely no medium included, so you can see the differences. The next I'm going to try is the stone mortar medium. This is going to give your paint a little bit of texture. It's good for very particular textures, particularly in landscapes. Once again, you don't want to have more than 50% of the mixture being the medium. You can see that I'm blending it with my palette knife. Students, you should really keep in mind that you should generally blend with your palette knife and not your brushes, because it does damage the brushes. Now I'm applying the mortar medium with a brush, a synthetic brush in this case, but it can work with any medium. I'm getting nice even coverage, kind of giving a glittery effect with the lighting in the classroom at this time. Next, I'm just going to be using acrylic paint with water, which is your go-to medium for most students, but it creates a very streaky effect. Gloss medium is similar to matte medium, but matte makes things flat, whereas gloss makes things shiny. So I'm mixing in the gloss medium into the acrylic paint. And this is going to allow me to have a shinier effect. Now you'll notice that the color looks a little different in that section. Actually, most sections they look a little bit different, but they will dry the same. Now I'm using sand medium. This is a sand mortar. This one's a lot thicker, surprisingly, than the stone. The texture is a lot heavier and a bit harder to work with. Very gritty sounding when you use it. Once again, 50-50 mix, and you can see as I'm sliding it off with the palette knife, I'm not getting very good coverage, so I'm going to the brush, but it's a lot thicker. Although I'm doing this with a synthetic brush, I probably should have used a natural brush so that I had an easier time covering the section that I'm working on. Now the last medium I'm going to go over is Impasto or relief paste. Impasto medium is great for creating texture. You'll notice that I'm mixing it with a palette knife and it looks quite light, but don't worry about that. It will dry relatively the same color as the paint. It's just the medium makes it look light as I'm blending it. Now I'm applying it with a palette knife because I can get some really lovely frosting-like texture with Impasto medium. However, you can also use a brush with it. It's okay to change to a brush. It allows you to create different textures and patterns as I'm doing here. Now, I've done a little bit of an extra coat on most of them, except for the very thick mediums of stone, sand, and impasto, just so you can see the difference that happens when you take the time to do a second layer. Now for this last part of the video, I'm going to be focusing on varnishes. I'm going to be doing a gloss varnish now and then a matte varnish next. Now varnishes are done at the very end of the painting process. A gloss varnish will impart a completely shiny effect on all of your painting and make sure that it's all consistent regardless of what medium you use. Everything will look nice and shiny. It's very good for creating that consistent effect, and the gloss medium does make it feel a little bit more like oil paint because of the shine. The matte varnish, as you're going to notice, is a little bit thicker. With the matte varnish, it's going to create the effect of everything being flat. Similar to how gouache looks flat, this matte varnish, as you can see, a lot thicker to apply, will make everything look flat when it's finished being painted across the entire painting. The top layer on this page has no varnish, so you can compare the effects between no, gloss, and matte in that order, and you can look across to see the different effects of the different mediums, as well as the intensities of paint through how many layers I used. For those of you in my class, you can see this piece in the room.